Now, Jamin, in the book, you and Kyle talk about different paths that we can take in our relationship with God. Talk about this fork in the road that we face.
Yeah, I think this is really important, and it's kind of central, right at the heart of what Kyle and I are wanting to accomplish in the book. That there's kind of this fork in the road, and really on both sides, the two different trails really represent kind of two different accounts of the gospel. And so on one side, we believe is kind of a reduction of really the good news, a reduction of what the gospel really is. And this trail leads us into kind of using God to kind of get the life I want. And so the centerpiece of the gospel, the centerpiece of really life is me and having life on my terms. And so kind of using God as a resource, maybe kind of a self-help tool to kind of become a better person or to have certain life circumstances that I'd like to have, maybe even have a certain felt experience with God. But all the while, the centerpiece is me, and I'm using God to get the life I want. The other trail, if we head down the other side of the fork in the road, is really the good news, the true gospel. And the centerpiece here isn't so much me. In fact, it's not me at all. It's God himself. That the centerpiece of the gospel isn't necessarily what he's going to offer us or the benefits of becoming a Christian or a certain life experience. But the centerpiece is God himself. That the one who is love has given himself to us and invited us into relationship with him. And so obviously you can probably tell from that tension that this is the trail we're hoping to invite people down, and to warn them that this is a reduction of the gospel, that a real deep and richer account of the good news is God has given himself to you, and he's invited you to commune with him, to have life with him. That's the good news.
Well, I think one of the problems we see, culturally speaking, is people inherently, by the flesh, want to take this first route. And of course, because it's all oriented around them, it's totally self-serving. It grabs onto the self-help nature of our culture, and we want to try to generate a life. The problem with that, of course, other than the obvious fact that it's not true, is the fact that the life God has for us is never the life we want. No one is choosing this life. I think it's better than the life we would make for ourselves. And I think that's what we see in the kingdom. But because of the upside down nature of the kingdom, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. All these things that Jesus is saying, where he's flipping our cultural values on their head, that no one wants that. No one wants to embrace that. No one wants power and weakness. We just want power. And so inevitably what ends up happening is we're tempted by this. But what God is offering us isn't, look, you can generate a life. It's, I'm giving you my life. And you can come into my life. This is why in the gospel, the great image in Scripture of the gospel is adoption. And just think about that image. That image is inviting us into his life. He's pulling us into his life. As he gives his son and as he gives his spirit, he's now wrapping us up into his life of love. So that in his life, in his kingdom, we are finding ourselves, we are finding our life, and we're finding our calling. And it's an existence that entirely exists in God and for God. And therefore is totally contrary to the gospel. And because of that, because it's the true gospel, the Christian life flowers there, and it gives birth to an entirely new kind of existence.